Okay, for those joining online, this is the Affordable Housing Committee meeting of Wednesday, March 11th. Meeting in the Old Town Hall Conference Room, as well as via Zoom. We do have a quorum. Time now is 7:01. I guess we can call things to order. Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. So we have a lot to talk about tonight. Tom Phillips will be joining us maybe as early as 7:15 online. Mark, I thought it might be good if we could hold some of the heart of the zoning discussion until Tom comes on.
Yep.
We could still start talking about the zoning regs if we maybe wanted to talk about parking and the design business regs. So why don't we do that? We'll start with the minutes of the February 11th meeting. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
I move we accept the minutes.
Jackie makes a motion. We'll hear a second.
I'll second.
Steve seconds.
I have a question for Mark, though. We can approve it. The question has nothing really to do, but
Well, wait till after you vote on it, I suppose. It has anything to do with the minutes.
well, it does.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but just a quick thing. 68 Royal Avenue.
Yep.
That's like in that middle of nowhere over by Commerce Drive that you can only get to if you helicopter in.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it was like
Three
dilapidated
streets,
house.
yeah, there's It's since been knocked down, they're
Yeah.
just framing it out.
Okay, and you showed a picture. You had pictures of it
I do.
being framed out. Yeah. Okay. That was all. Thanks.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye. So we're good with the minutes, so maybe we'll go right into the zoning regs. So we got a couple elements of this tonight. We have, maybe we talk about parking at least briefly first. So, Mark, these are a done deal now.
It is. So I did send out in the board packet for this meeting the proposed, since adopted regs, parking regs. This is not only to comply with new Public Act 25-1, but to bring things up to standards, to address some of the issues that we had identified, particularly with larger commercial, multi-category commercial plazas. So the big change in that regard allows for the commission to consider a parking needs assessment to determine the appropriate parking requirements based on what the developer proposes, supported by data and evidence. There's some requirements here in terms of what the parking needs assessment is to include and to analyze. But I think that was specifically directed at the analysis that Bob Ellwanger, as part of this committee, had performed some time ago, which I think made an impression on the Planning and Zoning Commission. As I mentioned, the commission did consider and adopt these changes fairly quickly. I think there was just one change, which was actually to make it more flexible, allowing them to consider shared parking within 1,000 rather than 500 feet as originally proposed. So all in all, I think, again, step forward in terms of making our parking a little bit more rational, particularly for these larger plazas. And as I said, there is, in Public Act 25-1, a requirement that we address, parking requirements for certain other types of residential developments, which this does comply with. So moving very quickly, and then in the next section, I included proposed changes to our design business district regulations. They had kept open the public hearing through last night and closed it based on the comments that they received, and I guess they're now scheduled to take that up for consideration at their next meeting. So they are moving rather quickly.
What does SE mean?
Special exception. So we have
I thought it was.
we have
southeast.
requirements that are special exception use, special permit use, they're kind of like special exception, special permit are kind of the same thing, I think, but, you know, that they kept that language in the update to our zoning regulations.
Yeah, just a couple things. So in the parking regulations, you may notice that there's nowhere do we address 16 units in development.
Yeah, that's,
And there's a reason for that. It was not addressed in Public Law 25-1. So it has to be remedied by the legislature, presumably during this session.
It did say 17, yeah, it's got.
So this is what they read, under 16,
This is up to 16,
up to 16. Well,
and this is 17 or more, I'm sorry.
maybe they're anticipating that remedy to take place.
Yeah.
But you're right, or that was an oversight in the drafting of
15 and the 17.
25-1. They recognized
Yeah.
that they didn't address that, so
yeah.
they may be anticipating that quick fix based on that.
Yeah, a question about the new flexibility. How does it get addressed if 830G comes in and wants flexibility on parking? Right now, it's not as of right. They've got to adhere to the parking regs.
No, they don't. They do not, because they never have. So it's I think it'll be treated very similarly, where
Okay.
they'll be.
Right, if they don't have to adhere
provide
now, it's fine. Yeah.
a rational basis for their determination. Because we have certain developments that are parked as low as one per unit. And, you know, typically 830Gs are somewhere between 1 and 1.5. So that's less than what our regulations used to require.
And safety is always a consideration, and always, so based upon safety, regardless of size of unit, you know, they could stipulate that, you know, something has to be done. The other thing I was going to mention was this issue of the two areas.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is really a hot item among some of the commissioners. So this is on the agenda for, I guess, their April 7th meeting, their next planning session. So Avalon keeps asking them to submit recommendations, and they wanted to wait until they actually got to the meeting to talk about it without sort of like committing up front. Last night meeting, there were two areas that were floated as being ones that that might be worthy of consideration. One would be an area that would be, I guess, radiate or be connected somehow to the community theater area because of the challenges of parking there. And the other one puzzled me a little bit. That was Southport. But that was also suggested as one.
Downtown Southport, in the center?
Well, I guess think of probably radiating from
Southport Village, you know, I can appreciate that, and more so perhaps than downtown, because what you're really saying, if you say exempt from that, is you don't want downtown to exist as it is currently, because we don't have parking for the theater. So if you thought about like providing parking as it was required in our regs, you'd have a building with a parking lot around it, which is not what we want in our downtown. So it's kind of the exact opposite of the direction in which they just are heading with some of the other provisions. So it's that, you know, I kind of understand where they're coming from, what's prompting it, but at the same time, it seems inconsistent with what we envisioned for downtown. And I heard, you know, some folks make reference to, you know, talking to businesses and businesses citing, you know, a lack of parking, but parking is, you know, a lot of those businesses wouldn't be there were it not for the Zoning Board of Appeals granting variances for the parking that was required at the time. So, you know, if you ask somebody, do you have enough parking? I think the answer oftentimes is, you know, the perception is, I don't know, I never have enough parking, because I want the parking to be directly in front of my storefront, and I want that reserved for my use and my customer use. Well, that's not how it works in the downtown. So there is plenty of parking downtown, as was demonstrated. If you look at, you know, the parking analysis that's been performed. Granted, a lot is at the train station, but maybe we can make more rational use of that parking at some point, rather than try to, recreate the downtown with buildings with a giant parking lot around, which is what we're trying to get away from. So I don't know where that's going to land. Oh, I guess I predict where some of it will land, but yeah, that's queued up for a conversation at the next meeting.
Is that auxiliary parking lot for the train station, is that used?
It is being used now, but it's being used to provide supplemental parking for Fairfield and Sacred Heart University students that pay for it because they don't have enough parking on campus.
I was
So
wondering why there was cars there.
Yeah.
There were not in the main train
if
station.
people want to bring their cars to campus, and there's not enough parking on campus to accommodate everyone who wants to bring a car to campus.
Gosh.
And so we were getting these requests, and it was just sitting there idle. So I think they've made use of it. So people park their cars. Kids are parking their cars there, but it's not commuter parking. But again, is that the highest and best use for that opening lot? I suspect not. I think we could probably do better. And
Serves the need for the town.
Fairfield U and Sacred Heart will probably have to figure out their own parking requirements on their own property. So rather than us trying to fix that for them.
So there are a couple of changes that Emmeline did hint at in the session last night that she wants to look at for the design business regs. So that, as Mark said, the public hearing is done, but I think she wants to look at like the setbacks on corner lots. There was some concern that maybe sight lines might not be so good at some of the intersections. So I think she wanted to look at that. Because part of the idea is to actually have not a minimum setback, but a maximum setback in certain business districts.
And all but the neighborhood design. So basically taking the design commercial, which is our general business district regs, and mimicking what's in the center design. So bringing buildings closer to the street with a maximum setback from the street. And then similarly, there's efforts here to limit curb cuts, if you will. So a maximum building width and allowing for a gap of not more than 24 feet. So that allows for two-way access, but not, we've talked to a developer, wouldn't allow, drive on this side of the building and the drive on that side of the building. Pretty much have to, pick one or the other. So again, we've been sharing this with folks that do development in town, property owners, commercial property owners, and asking for some input. We're working with a few that have development applications in various stages to kind of get their input as to how this relates to what they're proposing. And so far, the feedback has been generally positive. I think that's the one area, except for, Emmeline had some concern about the sight lines. So
Yeah, I think
there's probably going to be some massaging.
I think Jeff Randolph wanted to make one change in terms of the height in one of the districts from 30 to 40 feet, with the idea that the first floor it'd be 3 stories.
Okay.
But for the
Neighborhood design?
I think so. I think it's the neighborhood design that he
Yeah.
wanted to boost from 30.
That's a concern of mine because, they generally left neighborhood design a business district alone. There's some sensitivity that encompasses parts of Stratfield, Greenfield Hill, Southport. So there's some sensitivity to modifying those regs. It's meant to be very small scale retail servicing that particular neighborhood. But we do have examples, and I personally think it's better, on, for example, Tunx's Hill also has a neighborhood design business district, which is next to a design commercial district. I think it's better to just rezone it as design commercial. Because what's odd is the adjoining residential district has a 40-foot height limit, and in the neighborhood design, it's actually lower. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but maybe the answer to that is rezoning it as opposed to, but I'm sure it'll all get sorted out at the commission, the way they're moving ahead pretty quickly on this stuff.
The other thing that she was talking about was this brick wall phenomenon where there would be parking, interior parking. I think she wanted to just look at how that might potentially fit in to regulations. So not a big deal, but a couple of more minor things that she wanted to look at and study. So.
Don't put it in a hole.
Let's make it more dramatic.
Yeah, I need orchestral music to announce my presence.
Tom, are you with us?
He's on mute.
Tom, you're on mute.
That's good. Maybe he's at work.
Tom, you're on mute.
I'm trying to figure out how to turn off the music.
All right, well, you stay on mute then.
Now, got it. Sorry I'm late, guys.
Tom, we're just about to finish up discussion of the design business district regs and the,
Yes,
talked about the parking regs.
yes.
Public hearing is closed on both these items. The parking regs are adopted, and the design business regs we'll get some more tweaking, but it'll be based upon the commission's deliberations at a future meeting. We can catch you up separately on
I've read through them and they all sounded sensible. They were just. It's
I
good.
should agree with you.
So we'll catch you up on those.
Okay.
Is there anything else on the design? Is this regs before Mark, you have anything else? So now we can go to what sort of our main event, which is the regs that we would be making to the planning and zoning commission. Mark, were we going to hand out that? You handed it, everybody has this document, right?
Yes, yep, it was in the packet.
So
You put it on an idea?
that was the one that we first put out, but Mark just handed out with his agenda, he just handed out.
Yeah, so just a way of explanation. We've long been talking about changes to the inclusionary zoning fee, the inclusionary zoning threshold, the inclusionary zoning set-aside requirements in both the TOD as well as townwide. And I think Irv had put together based on something I had prepared some time ago called Affordable Housing Ideas, had drafted what was included in your packet, some proposed language or some suggested changes in concept and as an overall philosophy, not specific language, but what we're thinking about. And what I noticed is when they went through a zoning regulation technical rewrite, they updated the regs, a lot of the sections changed. So when we talk about 25.7, it's not really 25.7 anymore. It's a different section of the regs. So what I did was I had gone through some time ago. There's all these yellow tabs in my copy of the zoning regulations and identified every area where it talked about below market rate units or inclusionary zoning or affordable housing or something along those lines. And I hope that there's an opportunity perhaps to consolidate some of these regs because they're in multiple locations. Maybe they don't necessarily need to be. There's two sections of the regs that refer to a transit-oriented development park in the area or transportation commercial park in the area around Commerce Drive. To me, they're kind of one and the same. They could be consolidated into one, hopefully. There's also a transit-oriented downtown district overlay, which, perhaps two could be folded into something more generic in terms of a transit-oriented development overlay district that could apply both to the area around Fairfield Black Rock as well as downtown. But for now, I just went through and made some suggested changes based on what we've talked about before. And these, again, are just a starting point for conversation. They're pretty modest. But, one of the things we talked about was increasing the inclusionary zoning fee, which hasn't been changed since it was adopted in 2018. What prompted this a little bit further, or brought it to the fore once more, was that the Planning and Zoning Commission is currently considering updates to their zoning fees as a whole. And so I thought, well, maybe this would be an appropriate time for us to consider an update to the inclusionary zoning fee. This is just a fairly modest change from $5 to $6, but we can certainly talk about that. But then when it gets into other sections, there are provisions here that reference the set-aside requirements. So we've talked about increasing the set-aside requirement townwide from 10% to 12%, lowering the threshold from 10 units to 5 units. And then in the TOD area, which includes the center design, downtown, and the transit-oriented downtown district, going from what's existing, in most cases, 12% to 15%. And for consistency's sake, there's some concern. There's a provision in the center design business district that talks about allowing, requiring a set aside of 20%. That was for Marc Andre's project. There is some concern whether or not that is realistic or feasible for development projects writ large. I mean, maybe Mark wants to go above and beyond. That's great, but we don't want to necessarily. And I think, too, we want to be consistent. So if we're requiring 15% with similar densities around Fairfield Blackrock Station, maybe we should be 15% across the board. There is also some effort here. Some of the language makes reference to the restrictions remain in place for the life of the building or development. And we included language more recently to clarify so that we wouldn't lose any credit from the state, but in no case less than 40 years. Because we didn't want somebody to assume like the life of the development could be less than 40 years, so you don't get credit for it. So we put that language in one section, but didn't modify the other sections. So this is an effort to kind of bring everything consistent so that language carries through. But we have some other things to talk about. Herb has put forth some other ideas here. We have had some concern with those 5 to 9 units developments. It's noted if somebody is currently, if they're paying the inclusionary zoning fee, which if we lower it to 5, they'd have to create a unit, right? But maybe we want to provide an option to pay their way out. We've talked about that. For ownership developments townwide, we allow now developers to propose off-site units in satisfaction of the on-site units for affordable housing ownership units. But we could also provide a fee in lieu option for either the small 5 to 9 if we're concerned that that would be a turnoff, that they couldn't create the one unit, or the ownership units to provide additional flexibility. And then I think we also, I think in Herb's note too, there was the conversation about the middle housing, like the residence B and C zone, but that wasn't addressed here. So I don't know, did I cover largely?
There's one other thing that I had briefly suggested, and that was the possibility of just asking the question, do we want to round up as we currently do, or do we want to assess fractional charges, which some communities do? So for instance, right now, you build 11 units and 2 have to be affordable. And so we have no 11 unit developments, essentially, right? We probably have a lot of 18s and 19s and so forth, but nobody's going to build an 11 unit development.
Doesn't always work out as, I would have thought too that developers would be more sensitive to that at the they are to some degree, but it's not as cut and dry.
It's true, like Westway, the famous Westway was 12, Steve's favorite development was 12 units, very high-end unit, so there was very substantial affordable outlay there. 12 units, and 2 of those had to be affordable.
I think it was 18, wasn't it?
I think 18 for Pequot, I think. I think Westway,
Okay.
I thought it was 12.
I thought it was something like that too, but that guy went in knowing.
Yeah, he bought in with, that was a condition of approval.
Yeah.
He knew it was coming.
He bought it
He wasn't,
knowing that.
he wasn't blindsided. No.
But anyway, so yeah, Herb's right. There are a couple examples. What we require now is not less than, so it's rounded. A fractional unit is rounded up to the next highest number. So you can't have an 11.1 unit requirement. It'd be 12. Some communities take that fraction of a unit and convert it into a monetary amount that gets deposited in the housing trust fund. Personally, I like the unit, but the other side is some developers would play games with that, and you wouldn't get some of those they would try to make it so it's a round number. Right?
And I'm not suggesting we charge an eighth of a unit, but maybe, I mean, the equivalent of an eighth of a unit, but maybe a quarter or a half or whatever. But it'd be a way of it probably would be more equitable, a way of populating the housing trust fund with dollars that we could put to use as well. So it's something for us to think about. I'd say the greater concern to me is that we do something with the 5 through 9s.
So I think what you're likely to see maybe is less activity in that 5 to 9 category. You have some recent examples where people are proposing 9-unit developments or 7-unit developments, and maybe they wouldn't be as quick to do that if it may not pencil out for them. So again, I think we'd have to probably test it, and if it really had a serious significant adverse impact in terms of new housing development that we want as a community, then we probably have to pull it back a little bit. But I think it's worthwhile putting it on the agenda. What we had talked with the town planner and assistant town planner about the mechanism by which since Planning and Zoning Commission is obviously entertaining wholesale changes to their regulations and moving fairly quickly to do so. She invited us to apply, put a proposal on the table, and we can talk about it informally as part of a planning session if it's not fully formed. And we could do that as early as the 14th of April. She's holding the date for us. Or no, the 14th.
14th. She actually mentioned that during the meeting last night too, so she's obviously thinking about that date.
Right.
So
that would be an option for us, and then so we could put these out and just talk through them with the commission, and then we could I guess formalize them, schedule them for a public hearing. They can debate them beyond that. So. I mean, it's a way we've been talking about this for a couple of years. It would be at least a way to get them before the commission, start talking through it with the commission, see if there's any real serious concerns or if we need to go back and get some data to help fill in a couple gaps. But I think, we'd like to move this forward at some point.
Emmeline also said that we could use that opportunity to note the possibility for ADUs of further liberalizing the regulations. And she was specifically thinking about detached ADUs, which you currently cannot do, I guess, in...
Well, half acre, I think it's half acre.
Okay, so half acre and below, or below half acre. So those zones, like R3, ABC, or something like that, we could address the issue of doing an attached one. So she thinks there's an appetite to do that. This would be a good time to at least tell the commission that we're going to study it while we're in there.
I agree. I think that's an excellent idea. Also,
Yeah,
you might also want simultaneously to liberalize the size limit.
The size limit beyond 40% and 1,500 square feet, that's pretty good. That's a
You could go
pretty-
maybe 50% at 1,500 square feet. May liberalize a percentage. Maybe the upper bound would stay the same. Maybe just change the percentage.
Well, an accessory use should be subordinate to the primary use.
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah.
So you think at 49% or something? You know, it can't really be more than 50%, I would think.
Okay. Well, 50 is an upper bound.
I think so. So what we heard, and actually the Planning and Zoning Commission debated this when they were adopting regulation changes, was whether to go further than what we had requested in terms of detached units. There was a debate, and they decided for at the time they said, well, let's test it out. But now you're seeing more demand. People going to the Zoning Board of Appeals asking for variances to do a detached unit in residential districts that don't currently allow for that. So the thought, I mean, I think this would be tremendously liberalize it a lot, which was allow detached units in any residential district.
I never thought I'd love to see that.
Provided, it's a single family home, right? So.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if they'll go for all that, but.
Yeah, I mean, doing that in Zone C, with, where you can put 4 units and, well, this would be for
It has to be for a
single.
single family
Yeah,
home.
so you're giving up your opportunity to convert.
Temporarily, I mean, you could always
Yeah,
take away.
temporarily, you're giving up your opportunity to say, put a duplex in, because in lieu of the duplex, in let's say Zone B, you're building the ADU. You're building an ADU and it can be detached. And same with Zone C, which is even smaller area, you'd be giving up the opportunity to do quad, but you've got the ADU that could be detached. So it's giving the owners an option.
Yeah, I think there might be concerns. So some of these areas, someone might have more than a half acre, but surrounding parcels are less than. So are they going to become sort of overwhelming to neighboring parcels? Like I can see that happening in the Stratfield district, right? There's, for example, that's where I live. So I could see that being a concern for residents.
So you could see, I see what you're saying, Deb. So let's say you're a zone, I think that's Zone A.
That's right.
Stratfield Zone A.
It's gonna mix. I want something small.
Yeah, there's some stuff up there that's smaller than that.
And a lot of the neighborhoods, for example, we've got people with 1.5 acres, but then I'm on a 1/4 acre, but we're right up against, right? Yeah. So I think it's something to consider.
Why am I, we discussed, we have a detached garage.
Yeah, that's the example.
Which is quite nice,
Probably given,
actually.
Where you can take a detached garage structure,
Convert it.
currently not allowed, but you can
Convert it
convert
to
it. to
Which makes sense.
You're not really
But
increasing
the
the.
height and the,
And we're on an eighth of an acre, although we own the adjacent lots.
So of course, we could include constraints on this.
Yeah, that's I think.
And it's
that's
something
what
we would
makes
want to
sense.
study really carefully. We want to study it really carefully, I think. I think there are a lot of things to really be careful about in terms of liberalizing some of the zoning regs. Like we didn't include in this package the Zone B, Zone C. That was one of Mark's ideas, affordable housing ideas. And I think we really need to study that pretty carefully. I'm hoping that maybe we can do some sort of simulation. So what if we reduced that lot size for Zone B to 7,500 square feet? What could happen? Because we've already seen some situations where a developer comes in, buys a 9,100 square foot property and puts 2 big, condos or two big, duplexes on that property and buys it for a huge amount of money, and the sellers become, instant millionaires. So we have a real life example of that. So it's the type of thing that we can try to study a little bit before we make a big commitment. But I think just the fact that we're looking at this is a positive and something we could just note during the discussion.
So the payment in lieu, it's not in there yet.
It's not in there. I pulled out,
When you talked about the 5 to 9, I thought that's a very germane point, like that, the math work, the payment in lieu.
well, so right now, Herb's point was the 5 to 9 unit development, actually any development less than 10 units, right? That doesn't otherwise provide any allowance or provision for affordable housing pays an inclusionary zoning fee of 5 per thousand. And Herb's point was, well, a 9-unit development is getting off scot-free, you know, it's a pittance. Now, I think you would solve that by saying, no, it applies to you, 5 and 5 plus. Now, you know, you need to make a provision for one affordable unit. The unintended consequences would be maybe some of those projects no longer pencil out, so we'd have to consider that. One option would be, if that proved to be the case, we could right-size the inclusionary zoning provision as it relates to those 5 to 9 unit developments so that we get a better reflection of what the market value is of that particular unit as opposed to, you know, just some small bills thrown our direction with inclusionary zoning.
I wasn't suggesting anything cheap, but I was just saying that, like, given other towns do that, like, it's just a part, it's not a 100% opt-out, like, I think there has to be some.
Yeah, I think
That's, you know.
it probably, I mean, we've long debated whether or not we should have opt-out provisions. And I think generally speaking, this committee and the Planning and Zoning Commission would much prefer that the units be created as part of a private development and not provide a fee in lieu option. Yeah, there might be some exceptions. I mean, affordable home ownership we know is a difficult challenge sometimes, and there's some weird examples with private sector developments. So, you know, maybe it would be, we open the door a crack a little bit by saying, okay, if you can give us off-site units to satisfy that, but the benefit to us would be, you know, obviously it's at the commission's discretion. Part of it we're assuming is that we're getting title to those units, so they're permanently restricted. And oftentimes we might be getting more units than what's promised as a fair trade. So that might have some better value for us as well. But that's all subject to the judgment of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
So if they had, let's say if the commission were dealing with 250 Pequot, which are these high-end condos, if they had at their disposal the option to say, you know, no, you've got to build the units, or to say, we'll consider, you know, another site, but here's what you have to do on this other site. You've got to build 2 units for one on another site. Or they could say, well, we've got a rule of thumb charge of 350% of AMI. And so that would be another tool that they would have at their disposal, right?
That's not currently it. That would be a new language.
That would be new.
If we wanted to provide a fee in lieu, we could go back to that. That was what we were wrestling with before. I think we were, at the time, proposing 320. We rounded off to 350. 350, if you ran the numbers today, 350 would be a payment of $520,000 per unit. So a sizable sum, not probably enough to be I mean, from the developer standpoint, he might think that's a bargain for Pequot, because he's probably looking at more than that in terms of a payment. If he's buying a duplex somewhere else in town to provide offsite units, he's probably going to be paying more than $600,000 for those units. So I don't know if we want to introduce that or not. It's something we've talked about. we'd have to, I don't like to regulate to either extreme situation, but I think oftentimes developers will figure out the path of least resistance, what makes the most sense for them. So, I mean, we could always not use 350, we'd use a higher number that would be more what we think, so we're not diminishing the value of the offsite units.
I think we use the opportunity on the 14th to float this idea and get the commission's feedback.
On the other
They have
hand,
something else that they,
I don't know if we want to mention unless we feel like this is something we want to entertain too. So, they might jump at it and say, oh, that's a great idea. And then we might have second thoughts. So.
I mean, yeah.
On the flip side, all these requirements, what if they do something below 80?
So we have talked about that, that gets complicated. So I do think that there's some benefit.
There's a big need in the state.
Yeah, I agree. But I find oftentimes that it's going to be it's easier to do that through subsidized units. So I don't know. Some communities do peg their inclusionary zoning requirements to 60%. That's tough. We would probably see a lot fewer projects because I don't know that they would work without some level of subsidy. But we've talked about providing an option, which is, hey, if you want to do 60%, you don't need to provide 15% units. You only need to do 8%, whatever we come up with. So you could come up with an equivalency and factor that in. But I think, most people are going to take the 80% because that's kind of a wash for them. And it's 80%, for 40 years. So they have to factor that into their, 40 years. But for their purposes, when they're financing, so that's long enough.
If we concluded that building 60% units was a social objective that we wanted to embrace, then perhaps we could use housing trust fund dollars to subsidize the difference.
So, yeah, rental, do like a ramp, a rental system, the rental,
Yeah, I think rental subsidies are the way to go to get deeper targeting, right? Or work with a developer
we've
like
seen both types, and yeah.
work with like Fairfield Housing Corporation or somebody else like that to do deeper targeting. Because I don't see the private sector doing it, honestly, unless they're required to. And then,
AMI keeps going up enough. 60 doesn't sound.
You do have to educate folks as to what that means.
Already here. I mean, it's.
So this isn't intended to be the end of the conversation. Hopefully it's enough to just get it onto the discussion before the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then we can come back and fine tune it from there.
We will meet again before April 14th. I'm not sure when we would feel like we needed to give the
Probably need to
commission.
give, I think we probably need to do it before then. We could always have a special meeting if you want. If you felt like we needed to talk before we finalize these things. Then we could also, I could take another look at the ADUs and come up with language similar to this, so we'd have something to react to as well. But that the ADUs, to Tom's point, I think that does make a lot of sense to at least put that on the table. We'll see where it goes, where the conversation goes. I think this would be kind of the minimum we've talked about, and then, if we wanted to, I think we'd probably want to come to some consensus to whether or not we want to open the door to a payment in lieu option.
Everybody think?
Do you think they'll accept these numbers? They're more receptive, because at one point we were like, we didn't think that they TPZ.
Well, so I think they would. I think this would be well received. I think there's going to be questions to, understand what the impact is, if any reg change, what's the impact going to be? And, it would be helpful for us to have some answers to that. we've been asked a couple times by colleagues, staff to, have you discuss this with developers or applicants as to what that would mean for their particular project. So we probably should reach out and have some conversations with folks. I expect most developers will probably, it's going to kill us, type thing. But hopefully we can get to the real number here. But there's two things. First, we know what some surrounding communities are doing in this area, and maybe they're not as, they don't see as much construction activity as we do, but we're certainly in good company. And then secondly, we have some developers who propose this and beyond, which again, I think that would be, if they didn't feel like they could make the project work, I think there are examples where I've had people propose things and come back and run the numbers afterward and figure out that they can't make the numbers work. But that's rare. Most cases, they have a pretty good idea what pencils out before they go through the process. So I think we're in the ballpark. And, the other thing I would say is we've got a lot of projects in the pipeline, honestly. A lot in construction, a lot approved about to go into construction. So I'm not sure if this, turns it down a little bit, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And maybe we only get projects that are really, really good ones that we want to see. So that might appeal to some of the other folks on the board that are more concerned about the pace of development.
I had suggested $10 per thousand instead of $5 per thousand. And both Mark and Emmeline think that
I thought you were low. You should have gone for 15.
so I feel like I'm a voice crying out in the wilderness right now. But,
I wish it weren't in the regs. There are other fees aren't in the regs. What I often find is it's helpful to have an annual review of these things and determine, or an escalator clause that automatically ups. That's true. Because, just inertia. 10 years go by and you haven't done anything. So then when you do try to reset it and you go up all in one, then all hell breaks loose. So I think that would be probably a bridge too far. $10 or $15 for Steve. I think
it's already a steal.
I think they would probably panic. But
$10 would be it's still a steal. But
we're not there yet.
6 basis points.
Yeah. But anyway,
maybe keep it. Just have a 5% escalator clause.
I don't think you can't really do that in a reg. So I think
okay.
I think one option would be to talk to them about whether or not this belongs in a regulation. Maybe the language suggests that the Planning and Zoning Commission annually sets the rate or whatever, something like that. Some language that's
we could try to inch it up that way.
Because to go through a reg amendment and a public hearing, that just seems. I like that idea.
And I will acknowledge that this is inflation sensitive because it's 1% of value in 2026 dollars versus 2018 dollars. So we aren't getting more money. Now, if values drop, we'll be getting less. And so then I feel even better about the higher percentage. But anyway.
So what does everyone think? Are we ready to put this before the Planning and Zoning Commission, at least in concept?
All of this or one of these items?
I would propose putting all of it.
Okay.
And
I just wanted to be clear
maybe something with accessory units in there.
what the ask was. Well, yeah. I would go for both of those.
So we would not address in this the Zone B, Zone C,
Probably not the Zone B, Zone C, and we probably wouldn't do the fee in lieu at this point.
and the DRD would hold that back as well.
The DRD, we didn't really have an idea what to, we talked about, the issue that we've run into, we've talked about before, We have, they did revise the DRD overlay regs, but it applies to certain, you have to have a parcel, minimum parcel size. And oftentimes that may not get us to everywhere we want to go, particularly with smaller projects, so like the 10 to 20 unit projects. And so there's been conversation about some kind of DRD light overlay that maybe extends that minimum lot size further, or some way to get at those missing middle housing typologies we're looking for. But I don't think that work is done. I think that requires a lot more study as well.
It does. I think we as a committee need to get more comfortable with that whole concept of DRD. Really probably understand it better as a committee and how we could potentially make suggested changes to it. So we could certainly tell them that we're holding back on these areas and that these are part of our ongoing work. Look, studying the
Residence B, residence.
VC, the DRD, the fee and lieu, but we're not coming to you with recommendations at this stage.
So is that a yes, we should do this, or no?
I'm a fan.
We'll move ahead with that. Great.
All right.
And if they do disagree with Seth, it gives us the points of friction, and we can then tune them.
Should we move to the maybe next, if we're done with the regulations for now, maybe move to the video, the workshop, and the
Good idea.
and outreach generally? I think Jackie's got some updated information.
So I just interviewed 3 of the people that we've discovered. They're great.
They are.
Great stories,
Fantastic.
dynamic people. They'll be wonderful. The professor from Fairfield U is terrific. He has an autistic daughter that moving into the Fairfield School District was a significant gain for them. Loves the diversity. He just had great things to say all over. He got in basically on being a grad student. So that's why he was able to get in at the 50% level for AMI. So, and then Judy Henry, in my head I have her as Judy Nelson, I don't know why. But she's also very dynamic, got a great story. She was in the same apartment for 36 years, and then it was condemned, and she had to move out the same day with no warning. So she lived in her car for a couple of days, moved in with a friend for a few days, and then gave the town of Fairfield Social Services credit for getting her into Trefoil Court, which she'd already been on the waiting list and gotten in twice, but had turned it down because she was happy where she was, and so they kept her on the list. So it wasn't dramatic finagling, to get her in. So she loves it there. She's very happy, raves about Carol Martin. And then the other woman was Alicia Hutchins, who had actually lived in senior housing, the fancy kind of senior housing, and then her father fell and broke his femur, and she moved in with him, and all sorts of healthcare issues in terms of making sure he was taken care of, changed her financial situation. So she got a place at Park Ave, 55, I forget the number, and she's really happy there too. So they're all good. Unfortunately, my young disabled man doesn't want to do it. His disability is a little bit in his speaking, and it makes him uncomfortable thinking he'll be filmed. So I would love to find someone young or disabled, and it'd be nice to have another man. And Valencia from Habitat for Humanity's got someone for me. She's just double checking. She wanted to know if it was be at her house or someplace else. And the videographer wants to do it all in one location, do all the interviews in one location. So we just have to accommodate people working having to do after hours. So I think we'll get a diversity candidate from Habitat for Humanity, and hopefully maybe her kids too. So, but I need a couple more. And
We could check with Allison or Julie at the Bigelow Center. Allison oversees social services, and Julie's the overall person. Julie Marco. I mean, I'd be happy to try to inquire. I'd be happy to ask around.
Yeah, it's more. I'm trying to slot in a little bit of a different look than having 4 elderly women.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm going to have a few. I think I will follow up with Carla to see if we had any.
Yeah, somebody from
candidates that seem appropriate from permanent supportive housing perspective. But I think if I reach out to a few of the property owners directly and ask, we get the deed restricted reports, but we don't often know, more demographic details. But, if I reached out to a few of the property managers and told them what we're up to, I'm sure I can probably get a few suggestions and maybe they can make an introduction for both of us.
Yeah, so they have.
And then I do have a gentleman that I can't remember his name, but I've talked to him many times. He's over in Alto, and he's come in multiple times, and he was in one of the affordable units too.
Okay.
So
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk to him. I was reaching out to, there's another woman I talked to, but her English is so broken, I don't think she'd be good. So as their report, and then Eileen Francis, I just haven't heard back from.
as you said, you've got the elderly,
Kind of got the older woman thing going, so.
kind of worked out. So we can find some other folks, and hopefully we can find I agree with you. I think that was the point of getting a bio to have, because I love the stories partly because you have a couple with an autistic daughter, somebody with a disability, and then you have a person that had a health crisis. So these are all great stories.
They're very compelling stories. They're good. They're good stories.
They're good stories, and they speak to the need for housing, and I think they're easily relatable, which is what we're going after. So I think I love the bios were fantastic. Yeah.
Oh, I was a headhunter. All I did was interviewing for 35 years, so I do know how to interview.
Yeah, it was awesome. I thought they were awesome. Really got a sense for the story that they're going to
Yeah,
tell.
they're good stories.
Yeah.
So I don't know if we'll get all that much in it, but
No, well.
'cause they'll-
So I think, the next steps here is we need to identify, we're about halfway there. We need to finalize another 2 or 3 people that we feel good about, that provide a little bit more range of perspective. And then work with Alex to come up with a price that we can afford, and then put it in motion. So I think we're very close at this point.
Yep.
So, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's fun. Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Mark, the annual reports you get from the property owners, does it give the age of the tenants?
I don't think so. I don't know that's certainly not required. We might be able to guess, but, I'm not sure we can even do that. But I think, I'm thinking the Garden Homes development in Fairchild has, 50% of those units are affordable, and some are deep targeted. There's a lot of working people in that development. So maybe we can reach out. We're talking to them about Bronson, so we can talk to them and see if they have any suggestions, and then we'll go from there. But I can also reach out to the other, Alto has a lot of units there too. And,
I'm happy to call if you want to give me the.
well, I think what I need to do is just ask them first if there's anyone that within the age group that we're kind of looking
Right,
for,
right.
and then we can reach out to them, and I'll put them in touch with you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That worked really well before, and I did want to follow up with Carla before she left town, so she might have some thoughts there too.
I do know a family that it's in the Operation Help, actually, but it's still in what do we call it, Parkview Commons, and so I know it's be too similar, I think. So
Yeah, it is, and it's an interest. If it's the same family, it's an interesting case there too. 'Cause I think one of the kids is going to Sacred Heart or something like that.
yeah, the one with the star football player,
Yeah.
at high school and stuff. So, yeah.
I mean, would any of the Greenfield Street residents be prospects?
Meaning the senior housing or Habitat?
For the Habitat?
Oh no, that's she's going to give me one of them. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm hoping the young mother. I don't know if you remember the 2 kids spoke and not the mother, but I talked to the mother some at there, and she was great, and the kids were great. So I would do all 3 of them. I would hope. So,
Sorry. Missed it.
One of those homeowners would be great.
Yeah, that's good.
And then the workshop, I think I think we need to kind of nail down, a couple suggested dates and then some suggested venues, and then talk through the topics that we may want to talk about. I did mention this to the first select person who was really interested, I guess. The subject of affordable housing and 830G has come up repeatedly in some of her coffee connections. So she was excited to hear that we might be putting on some kind of workshop later. In fact, a communications person wanted to put in tomorrow's newsletter. I was like, well, we're not quite ready for that yet. But we're talking end of April to do this, so we have plenty of time to cover it in the newsletter. I don't usually like to market things much before 30 days out, because who plans their calendar that way? But that would be the next steps there, which is kind of pinpoint a date, time, location, topic, potential panelists.
So do we want to go beyond affordable housing and just talk about the housing, the big picture with housing, with affordable being a major component of it? I'm thinking of, because that wasn't Christine kind of thinking more than just affordable per se? Wasn't she thinking, she's responding to the fact people looking for housing options, right?
Well, I think we can probably cover that if we wanted to. I mean, talk about the work of the Affordable Housing Committee. There's so many different directions we can go here. I'm having a hard time understanding how we're going to pull it all together in some kind of, I don't want to make this a 2-hour workshop. No one's going to sit through that. So it's got to be like something tight that's like an hour, with time after for questions. Yeah. But you don't want to be, it can't be everything for everybody. So it could be one in a series of other things. So, yeah, Tom?
I'm inclined to be more in tune with affordable housing is just the tip of the iceberg. The housing question in general is a toughie. I'm guessing that you'll get traction if there are 2 separate talks or 3 separate talks. I think you'll get traction on both or all 3, because this is just such a multifaceted problem. The old, the young, etc., the affordability. I think there would be traction. So I think I'm inclined to think that Herb's right in this.
Well, Tom, I mean, would you think then that we would have like maybe Mark giving sort of an overview session, not something as detailed as what Jackie had set up at Lifelong Learners, but maybe some overview, and then have maybe separate tables where people could talk about different topics? Or what approach were you thinking about?
One way was for Mark to do a more condensed version of his affordable housing talk, which was really well received. There was a huge turnout for that. And then have... They're just like... And then to add on 1 or 2 more talks, shorter talks, 20 minutes, half an hour, on various aspects of housing. How are we going to house the elderly? How are we going to house the young? Are there designs for houses that increase density without increasing visual density? Essentially, you could think through the architecture aspect, the structural aspect, the type of home aspect, the people we're serving aspect. I think there's a bunch of really great questions out there, and we shouldn't focus 100% on affordable. Everyone has a problem with housing. It's not the same problem that everyone has.
I think we should stay close to our mandate, though, and that's affordable housing. And it's a really big field, and if we go off on tangents, how are we going to cover everything? Maybe we have a table separate for housing.
You might be able to do both. I mean, one way, not in one meeting. I think you want to keep it somewhat focused. But I'm sensitive to, maybe we don't hit the mark in terms of what people are really interested in.
Yeah.
At the end of the session, there could be, kind of a survey of some sort that basically says, what else are you interested in? And we could get that feedback, and then we could produce another program later in the year around that topic, so we can keep feeding it. I'd prefer to like get into more frequent, not to the extent where I'm doing a presentation once a week,
No.
but, because I have enough meetings anyway, but we've been doing like one workshop about ADUs in the fall. It'd be nice if we were able to do this, like get into more regularity where we're doing maybe some kind of program twice a year, once a quarter, something like that. It doesn't have to be me. It could be other people that are, we're bringing in a speaker to address a particular topic that is of interest to our community. So I think we just have to play it by ear a little bit, but I would think we could use a very general workshop that introduces the topic of housing, affordable housing, how we go about our work, talks a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing demographically, some of the challenges that we're trying and how we're addressing them, how we're measuring up. And then at the end of that, not just have questions, but then there might be an opportunity for people to say, hey, I'd really like to learn more about this or that or the other thing. So,
What's the status of the hotel? Is that still pending
still
zoning?
impending. Yeah.
So you were there, we met with Housing Collective, and they're sort of looking at some new ideas of things like this to do. And I met with Craig Diamond, who's the Braver Angel guy, to talk about maybe what we could do in terms of something where it would be tempting for both sides to attend. And we kind of came down to like talking about the motel and what it can or can't be might be something that would attract people from both sides and open a discussion about this is why we want this is why we don't want that. And there's a logic to it. It's just not WJ, we're washing our hands
Sounds
of
very
it.
contentious to me.
But that's more of a discussion, like,
I don't know.
I think the only issue is we've got something in litigation and there's mediation sessions as part of that. So it might be hard to take that as a test case because the judge is essentially trying to bring the parties together under,
we talked about doing High Street, but there's a done deal. So it was sort of like that wouldn't generate, we might get people complaining, but it wouldn't generate discussion in terms of what could be done or couldn't be done. I don't know if there's.
I like the idea of having some discussion at this meeting. I mean, if we had maybe several, even somewhat large tables where people could have a chance to vent a little bit, and maybe one of us could be at each of the tables and take some notes and get some feedback.
Even feedback and response, because I find that, I get Tom's comment, and I also understand Steve's, but when I speak to a lot of people, there's a level of misunderstanding about our housing market in general in this town.
Yeah.
It's either formed when they moved here, it's formed by where they drive every day, perhaps, but it's you sit there and you're like, no, actually, that's not it is what it is, but just to get that base level of understanding on this is what our town looks like today, and this is the demographics, and this is where homes are selling, because people also, I don't know where they get their information, but it is stunning because you can't even start talking about affordable. They're still like, well, what did, they have this preconception of what the housing stock is already. I'm like, no, all right, but that's then I got to go backwards and go, let's get you need to get to here before we can talk about affordable. And to your point,
That's unique to Fairfield. I think that's pretty universal, and that's part of the problem.
but yeah, we're something where you have people in a room and you go, because you have all this great data, and you're like, oh, I just want to see a show of hands. What do people think the average income is here? What do we think the average home prices are? And then you take it from there, right? And you start to see what, at least for that your sample size there, you see what they have, and then, yeah, what they want to talk to. But if they're all super well-informed, like, okay, geez, you guys know everything. Let's, we're gonna skip to some more complex topics, but I don't know, just, and also it's more people like, I think it's a better meeting when people, it's two-way, to your point.
I like the breakout and engagement opportunity, and
Yeah.
I think we need to think through that. I don't know. I think, they need to be tasked with solving some problem or something that's constructive, not just, what do you think about this? And people just regurgitate something. I mean, I still am drawn back to, I thought, again, when Glenn Chalder did the original affordable housing plan, I thought some of those tools that he used were particularly helpful for people to visualize and ground a discussion. I mean, one of them was, basically going through, the housing you have lived in over the course of your life and that you might live in, whether that is represented within the community. And I think that was, again, very helpful for people to think, oh, well, I didn't always live in a single family home with a white picket fence around it. I might have lived in an apartment building or,
Condo.
a number of things, right? But people were thinking about, where have I lived? Where might I want to live? Is that type of housing product available? And I think that was a very helpful or useful exercise because it did suggest, hey, maybe there's some missing pieces that we need
want to retire.
And it wasn't affordable, it was just housing. We want to provide a diverse range of housing so that people don't have to leave Fairfield if they don't want to. So I think that was a useful thing. I think, maybe getting people to react. I mean, here's a problem that we're wrestling with. What would you do to help solve that problem? So getting people to kind of think through those things, maybe with members of this committee acting as a facilitator to kind of spur the conversation. They have to have some grounding. They have to have some facts. They just can't go off and, la la land. But, I think maybe that would be interesting to challenge. We're looking to try to provide this kind of housing. We really can. What do you think? That type. What would you do to solve that? How would you create more starter homes that are affordable to folks, just starting out, young professionals or seniors looking to downsize into something not a
Big problem.
not a 5-bedroom house. That's,
Yeah.
3,000 square feet.
I do.
So
It is a shame, though. I do think the circle, though, that is a great conversation point. I was talking about today. Said that, because the diner was in the news.
yeah.
But, which I would assume was a rent increase when the new owners came in. Is that what the
I'm
source is?
assuming there is some.
That's why it's not,
Yeah.
just a guess. But,
I'm sure, from his perspective, you'd rather not have to work with a diner operator than he could develop it.
But, the scenarios, like, well, what is it? What could it be? And if it's not going to be that, well,
Yeah.
and I don't think the conversation's framed like that very often, and it's just a black and white.
Yeah, it's not going to be open space. No one's going to, own something and say, well, I don't really
Town's
care
not buying
about-
it and putting it
I don't
back.
really care about money, I'm willing to take a loss on this property that I own and just, it's not going to be income producing at all. I don't think that's realistic.
I do think like the starter home idea is sort of passe. Like people who can't afford, people who want a home of their own, an independent house, stay longer in apartments to buy a house they can live in 40 years, not 10 years. There's no upgrading. I think that's part the apartment living. I think the developers are onto something that's what people are receptive to is apartment living because they don't have to shovel the snow, they don't have to mow the lawn, they get things taken care of for them. And so building small houses sounds affordable, but I don't know that those same people that want to pay for a smaller house are going to be able to afford to upgrade because of taxes and,
Yeah.
fees associated with the move and everything. So I think the starter home concept is passe. But But it's the thing that people kind of throw around, like we
People
need.
say, well, it won't be an issue.
But, two-family houses, yeah, where you can, buy a rental property along with buying a house if you want a yard. But I'm not even sure people want yards that much. So, that concept is a little old-fashioned. I don't.
Well, I think.
I mean, it's an idea to throw out.
You're always run is that we just assume that everyone thinks the same way.
Right.
And I'm sure there are people that really want to buy a house in Fairfield and, can't afford something at $600,000. So, we look at the houses that we are building, the houses we're building are for a different income demographic. They're very large with lots of bedrooms. Does everyone want a 5-bedroom house at 3,000 square feet? I mean, maybe not. So it's about fine, but we should challenge people's assumptions there and maybe.
What are they looking for?
What are they people looking for?
If we had, an opening session, high-level opening session, didn't try to make people experts there, and we had some sort of breakout sessions, and then maybe we briefly reported back for everybody's benefit in terms of some major takeaways, and we whet their appetite for maybe meeting number 2 to follow, maybe a couple months down the road. I mean, that seems like that would be a win right there, because we would have hopefully informed some people, closed some information gaps, but also maybe found some potential advocates in the process. Some people that would like to come back, like learn more, maybe be housing advocates down the road.
Question is any of this going to tie into the housing growth plans that we're going to have to produce next year?
It could. Maybe that's not the right one to start off on. Maybe we want to take something that might be a little easier to tackle. But at some point, there's going to be a regional or municipal growth plan, affordable housing plan that we're going to produce. We'll need to have some data behind it, statistics, needs that we identify locally. And, I'm sure that we'd want to have a outreach component, but maybe this is priming the pump for that more intensive discussion, because we don't have a lot of details to share at this point. I shared the outline, and there's not much there. It's 10 pages of nothing.
Well,
So
we'll be ready to maybe answer some basic questions that people might have. I mean, some.
Well,
There's been
I
enough
think
publicity that people are interested. What is this 8002 and what's a MetroCog?
We probably know more than we think we know, right?
I mean, really, people don't know what that is. I didn't know what that was. So
My job, that's for sure.
As a practical matter, if we were in a room at tables having one-on-one conversations, we'd have to prep ahead of time to make sure that we all had the same set of facts and so that people didn't then play one against the other. He said, she said, whatever.
I think what you need to have in the breakout session is a particular subject, topic, question that each group is, and then they're reporting back what their discussion is. So you have to think about what that question or challenge is going to be. So we've had a couple ideas here that could generate some real conversation, whether it's is the housing that you think you'll need represented in our community? If not, what is that? It could be, around how much do you think it's an issue to have, or, when we're talking about starter homes, that's something. So we can take a little bit of time.
Couple of big picture type questions like that. And
I think we probably want to settle on like one, if you're going to have a conversation, that people can dig into and have.
I was just thinking, what would you like to have, but also, what are the obstacles in terms of getting there? Maybe it's all part of one question.
Yeah, it's one part of one question, right? But each group, you have to have somebody at the table to lead that and make sure that everyone has a chance to say something. But then that would take it away from what's on your mind. I'm going to bitch about the project, down the street from me that I can't stand. So I think this would be more constructive to move it in a direction where people are thinking through the problem, just like anyone else would, to come up with solutions. It's a good idea. I like it.
Well, have you thought it also combining with the Fair Rent Commission to have, giving them a little bit of a say, giving them a table? Does anybody know what they're doing in town? I don't.
I don't either, but I am actually
I do.
pretty curious.
I'm getting complaints and we're reviewing them and resolving them before they get to the hearing. So that's our
That's good.
mandate. We have a pretty good track record in terms of resolving complaints before they get to a hearing date. So for the most part, the Fair Rent Commission has had not much to do, but it does fall on staff to handle that. We're averaging about 10, 12 complaints a year, of which maybe 2 get to a hearing, get decided. But most of these are either withdrawn or settled through our efforts, mediation efforts.
One of the issues might be of interest is, I remember going to a TPZ meeting and sort of getting attacked when I left by a kid from Stratfield area, because he said, all these affordable housing are going in our neighborhood. And he was giving me all the statistics about what it was doing to the neighborhood because it was so focused there and not in Southport, that whole argument. So maybe, presenting like, here's one idea that we have 50% are non-conforming to begin with. So can we make the rest of these where you could build 2-family or 3-family housings on it? What do you think of that idea? And talk about Stratfield in particular, or whatever the neighborhood's called around.
No, I think we've tried, been very purposeful and not trying to locate housing in a particular neighborhood or zone.
Certainly
the
that
inclusionary
idea.
zoning is townwide.
Yeah.
And it's intended to create opportunities as private developers are creating housing to provide for some affordable housing as part of that development. So it's the opposite of that. I think people are reacting to where developers are proposing projects, and that's really the marketplace.
But this is one of the things we've kicked around as an option, which would increase the density in that particular neighborhood.
True.
Yeah.
So I think we should probably tee up a few questions and talk through them. We have some time. Not a lot of time if we want to do this at the end of April.
Well, if we want to do it in April, the logical week would be to do it the week of the 20th, I guess, or it could be the week of the 27th. I think I have this.
The week of the 20th or the 27th.
So somewhat related to this, or at least tangentially related, there is an Aging in Place fair at the Bigelow Center on Thursday, the 23rd, that afternoon. And the last time we had one of these, we had an affordable housing table. So we could use that to advertise what we're doing, community development block grant programs, ADUs, and the like. I think I'm going to ask if Fairfield Senior Advocates Table can be proximate to that, Mark, like it was last time. And, but anyway, that's Thursday the 23rd, so I think we want to stay away from that date.
Well, maybe that following week, the 29th or 30th, which would be a Wednesday or Thursday, would be good dates to focus on. And I don't know that it would conflict with other regular meeting dates because it's a long, there's a lot of.
Late in the month.
It's late in the month. And usually, RTM would be, are typically on Mondays anyway. So I think we're through that. So I'm not sure what else that would conflict with.
We'd have to see if they're done with the budget by then. The RTM's done with the budget by then.
I'd have to look. I didn't check that before I came here.
It would seem like it could be a good time.
Well, does anyone know of any conflicts if we were to look at the 29th or 30th?
What is spring break stuff?
It's all earlier.
The 5th.
There's the 5th. Passover's the week before.
Easter's early. Yeah, and then spring breaks happen, you know, they're all done by
Passover stuff is
mid-April.
early.
I think that's the week of the 15th, I believe they're,
What is that? What's the week of the 15th?
I think that's spring break,
Okay,
13th.
okay.
The week of the 20th, said,
Yeah, I'd stay away from that week of the 20th if we're doing the resource fair,
Okay.
which I think would be a good idea.
27th last week.
And then there's more stuff happening on this, on third weeks. You know, I would have the Arts Commission that week. Not sure what's going on the 22nd, but I think if we were looking at the 29th or 30th, I don't see anything on my calendar, certainly. And I think we're probably pretty light on other, you know, boards and commissions.
Yeah, looks good.
Okay,
So I can start shopping around for venues.
I think that's good. Now, just working backwards, I think we would probably want to try to get this advertised at least once. And great if we could get it advertised twice in Christine Vitale's newsletter.
Yeah, for that, sure.
So we should, yeah, so I think we want to knock this, but do we also need to lock down the content, the story that we would,
Well, you certainly need something that's a catchy title or something that's gonna attract attention, you know, entice people to come. So we'll have to think through that.
30G.
What's that?
so, yeah, right. So talk about sexy topics. So we would, so
A3G, what's it good for?
That's kind of what I said, but I didn't say it. I didn't want to get picked up.
you got to do it to the music there.
Yeah, exactly.
I was just thinking.
Edwin Starr, more.
What's it good for? There you go.
So we'll meet again on the 8th. So that would be a chance for us to finalize our strategy, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, you know, if we have, I mean, I'll certainly shop venues now. I mean, I think there's been a request if we don't have, you know, it's not in a town building that, like the Board of Ed. The Board of Ed is fine, but it's not the most, you know, it's certainly easy for Fair TV to film it. They're used to doing that, but it's not the most conducive to this kind of conversation. You know, the Museum and History Center is nice. Has the small tables. I'm sure we can come up with other places as well. You know, the Fairfield U second story was great, a little bigger. Again, we could have small tables, front room with presentation, breakout rooms beyond that. So I'll talk to a few places and see what their schedule looks like. We're thinking like a 7 to 8:30 type thing again.
What about like Fairfield has had 4 830Gs built in the last 3 years. We have 4 more in the works. Why is this happening here? Why are we so popular with 830G developments? Something like
Well,
that.
certainly you put 830G in the title.
Yeah.
It would be,
And then are we had more than most?
more than every other place.
I think we definitely saw a flurry of activity that was prompted by the impending moratorium. And I do think that, you know, we have seen a lot more applications in most communities overall. Now, a lot of those projects are much smaller than what most communities see. Many of those projects haven't been built and probably won't be built, but.
And it's sort of a provocative question.
Yeah, I get where you're going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we probably need to,
Fine tune it.
you know, boil it
But I
down
mean,
to like one
something-
catchy sentence, but,
Yeah.
but yeah,
There's a reason. There is a reason they're coming here. So,
Well, there's a reason they're coming here because it's a strong housing market.
right,
Yeah.
right.
You know, if they couldn't fetch, you know, a $4,000 a month rent, you know, the other stuff wouldn't pencil out at all. So that's what's driving it. You know, if the market's strong enough, there's people that would pay for this product at a market rent to offset the loss that they have with the below market rate rent units.
Yeah, speculative.
That's why you don't see these things, and like maybe you're not going to see it in like Ansonia or some place like that where the market is not strong enough.
No, that would be more of a speculative build where you're looking at the long term. This is for.
But that's a message people need to hear, that
This is
there's
a
a
shoehorn.
reason why this is happening.
Because we're
It's a good place to live, it's like whatever, yeah. So they can make more money.
yeah, I think the answer has always been you know, I think we all appreciate the fact that we went through this pain to get to a moratorium. Now we want to try to keep it in place so it's more about local control. In fact, that was the title of our first, you know, 2014 affordable housing plan, which was, you know,
Regaining control.
maintaining control or something. It was about
The
local.
perception
control.
is we don't have control, right?
Well, now we do,
Right.
and we have it.
Now we do because of the but we haven't, at least in people who don't totally understand what the moratorium is, think that we are still getting more 830Gs because that seems to be in the air still. The ones that are still
Well, I
paying.
think what I hear is most people conflate any affordable housing with 830G. Correct. So,
That's a fair point.
That's another wonderful thing.
yeah. But every project with an affordable component is an 830G project, and that's not true. So, I don't know, we'll have to think through that.
So can we leave it there for now, or?
We're gonna lose Brian.
Okay. Hey, good luck.
Yep.
Break a leg.
The semis,
I'm gonna-
semis to finals.
When I'm having trouble sleeping, I'm gonna flip through the channels.
I can send you guys all the video. It's great.
Sport is this?
Fantastic. Hockey. Men's hockey. Shelton. Thank you.
Good luck, take care, safe driving.
Such a weird time.
I was
That's when they can get ice time.
Like
Starting
some-
at 9 o'clock.
Oh, my
Hockey's so
goodness.
I can't even imagine.
Later than
To
that.
get the ice time, I know.
Yeah, my son will start at 9:30 or 10. He plays Friday nights. No,
So, we
got 3 rings.
want to get a decision on
busy.
the work that Tom Ivers did on,
Yeah, so there's one other item that I wanted to bring to your attention. This has come up before. It was in your packet. And so for rental properties, the way the low-income housing tax credit program works, there's some flexibility for rental recertification, income recertification for an occupied unit. And it basically allows the tenant to be recertified if they're within 125% of the AMI that was used for the unit. So Tom's example was, if it was restricted at 80%, 125% of 80% would be, their income would have to be below the 100% income limit for that particular unit. So it's, regardless, you always have a cap beyond which, somebody becomes ineligible for that unit and they have to then pay the market rate or move out. And so we just wanted to explore the possibility of creating a little flexibility for somebody currently living there that might, because they just maybe earned a little bit more overtime that year or got a bump in pay, put them over income barely, and then they wouldn't be forced with this decision. So it provides a little flexibility. It is what the state uses for housing tax credit applications. And we've wanted to discuss it with you. We don't have to make a decision tonight, but it is something that has come up periodically. And it'd be nice to have a little bit more flexibility to allow somebody to remain in those below market rate units. The opposite is, at some point, there is a cap. Even if you provide that flexibility, at some point, somebody's going to be over income for that unit and they're going to have to go out. There is demand for these units, obviously. So, by giving somebody flexibility to remain there, somebody else doesn't have the opportunity to move in. But I think it's warranted to give us a little bit. I always feel bad when, it's like, hey, congratulations, you got a raise.
Move out.
Now you have to move out.
Now it's going to cost you a lot more.
Right. Yeah. So
It's an annual recertification? How frequent is
we
the?
do an annual, so it only applies to rental units. And it's an annual recertification. And this would allow somebody to be recertified if they're within a range.
So if in fact they go above that 25% buffer, the way I think it reads now is they have 90 days to find alternative housing. I mean, that seems a bit severe. Could we at least find a way to bump that to 180 or?
Well, what really happens is that they, we can talk through that. It's usually when their lease is coming up, they do the recertification in advance of that. So you have some understanding of what your situation is, and then you have a grace period beyond that to either pay the market rate or, find alternative housing. So as a practical matter, there is a little bit more safeguards built into it, but the one thing right now is it is a hard cap. This is the limit, and if you're $1 over, you got to.
Mark, if we gave them the flexibility and they could stay, do they stay as a qualified tenant and we still get the points?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. The state basically says if you don't have some restriction, we've gone to the state and said, what do you do? And they're like, well, you give the people flexibility. We give them a range, and you should do too. So they're telling this to property managers, and property managers are, why aren't you allowing us this flexibility? And it's like, well, we don't have that policy, so you just can't do it on your own. We have to amend our policy to allow you that flexibility. You can't just implement it because the state does. It's not required, it's an option. So we did talk to the State Department of Housing, we talked to legal counsel for the State Department of Housing. And they said, well, it's up to you. This is what we do. We allow that flexibility. You could too, unless you have some prohibition against it. But, that's up to you.
Does someone in the town monitor all affordable housing units?
Yeah.
But it's because the property managers already are after it because they want to.
So what happens is they send us an annual recertification. They send us an annual report.
Who they? The property managers?
Property managers. Sometimes it gets filed with planning and zoning, but now mostly they're just directing it right to us. Tom is now reviewing those, and like when I was reviewing them, we check, and if we see something that doesn't look right, we'll contact them and say, this person appears to be over income. This rent appears to be too high. We'll ask them for an explanation. If they can't provide a satisfactory explanation, we'll then talk to them about how they can remedy it. And we'll mark, make notations in the file as to whether or not it's compliant or not compliant. I think most people are just trying to do the right thing. So we have found one case where people were charged too much, and we basically said, well, you got to rebate it, and they did. We gave them a credit on their next month's rent to cover that. So it works. This is the area where we've gotten a little bit of pushback from a couple of property managers, and they said, well, and because they manage units in other communities, or maybe manage units as part of the state's portfolio. And so they assume that that's our policy too. And it's like, no, it's not our policy. we don't have this policy, we don't have this flexibility. And then they said, well, maybe you should. This is what the state's telling us. And it's like, yeah, we've talked to the state, but we have to affirmatively adopt a policy. We just, you can't do this on your own. So we said, you're going to have to fix this for now, but we will talk about it and bring it up. So that's, and it's not like a lot, but it happens like at least one person each time is in that.
Yeah, we have it at Parish Court. We have 18 units that are 80% AMI. And they're we have someone who her assets moved from India. So all of a sudden she has all these assets and she's living in affordable housing. So what do you do with that? But yeah, we have the same issue.
It's not like these people are super wealthy.
No.
It's not like they're all of a sudden millionaires and they're staying in. It's like, they got a raise, they worked more overtime, something happened that just changed their income just a little bit, but enough.
Yeah.
And so you feel like, well, there should be, but there's always going to be a cap at some point beyond which you can't consider. This just gives a little bit of flexibility.
Yeah.
Flexibility seems like a lot of what this is about, right?
Yeah,
Because things aren't static.
they aren't. And I can see both sides, but I do think generally, I think this is a fair way to do it, which is to give somebody a little grace to stay in that unit. Again, it's not materially, they're not all of a sudden becoming super wealthy and abusing the system.
There's some sort of flexibility in the ban to make it something other than a hard cutoff is both sensible, compassionate, and pragmatic. It just prevents all sorts of disruptions to people's lives because their income might drop in the following year. There's no guarantee that it'll go up again. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So they
absolutely.
They can stay indefinitely, let's say at the 23% above, as long as they don't get to 26% above, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It can happen in 40 years. Your kids grow up and all of a sudden you're a family of 2 versus a family of 4.
Our thought is that, most people, it's not a permanent situation. I mean, there are examples where people live in rental housing for a long time.
Yeah.
But oftentimes working folks are looking for opportunities to find, better housing at some point, right? So maybe. That's where we see it, where, if you're on a fixed income, it's tenantly fixed. It's not like elderly people all of a sudden, that's a weird case where somebody all of a sudden inherits a lot of, and they have to, convert that to liquid assets. That's unusual. It's mostly working people that are, sometimes their income fluctuates.
Raises.
Yeah.
So what do we think? Are we good with it? Do we want to
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
approval of
It's
this?
a great idea.
Yeah.
Do you need a motion?
Sure. I'm not sure if it has to be approved by planning and zoning, but I'll check with the town attorney.
So moved by Steve and seconded by Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Thanks, Mark. Okay, let's see. So we could now, there isn't much to say about the growth guidelines, right?
Read that.
So there are 10 pages, a couple times. There are 10 pages of growth guidelines that we got. These are OPM growth guidelines for public law 25-1, 8002 or whatever it was. And they don't really say very much.
So confusing.
I mean, it looks really good.
It's impressive. 10 pages.
You can take
and that's
10
it.
pages and not say anything. So I'm not sure we have a whole lot of.
All I know is,
guidance,
do you have
so-
sewer and
Not a lot
water?
of
That's the only
guidance.
thing that's made sense so far, if you have sewer and water.
So, not sure there's anything more we can do with that at this juncture.
With your, I will only say this, with your permission, I would like to extend an invitation for Matt Folda, the Executive Director of MetroCog, to join us at a future meeting, hopefully maybe even next month, to talk about the housing
Right.
guidelines and regional growth plan and what this means for us. So I think that would be wonderful. So I will send that invitation and ask him if he would have some time to join us via Zoom.
That'd be great. So Mark, we can tackle some of these, I think these other items
Quick
are.
updates.
Yeah, quick updates.
Well, I can work my way back from the bottom. Update on CMDA, the Board of Selectmen did approve a resolution authorizing the first select person to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Connecticut Municipal Development Authority. That was already approved by the RTM last year, but because our charter does require the board to act on, enter into contracts, which this in essence is. So that's why it went back before the Board of Selectmen, select persons. The first select person has since executed the MOA with CMDA. And the memorandum basically covers a development district around the Fairfield Black Rock Station, which is already zoned for transit-oriented development. That's the only development district that qualifies under state guidelines, but what it doesn't enable then CMDA to do is provide technical and planning assistance to the town, infrastructure support for projects in that area, as well as directly assist projects that have been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission within that development district that might have a funding gap. I'm not aware of any right now, but and there are no 830G projects in that development district. All in all, I think I have yet to hear downside to CMDA participation. That's been expressed. Most of the concern is about other things that are not part of CMDA, like live, work, ride, and 830G and other things like that.
What does CMDA stand for?
The Connecticut Municipal Development Authority. It's modeled on the Capital Region Development Authority, which has long been in existence and assisting projects in the Capital Region, Hartford and East Hartford. And those are the only two communities that are not eligible for participation in the CMDA. There are, I think, a number of communities now that are members. Fairfield's one. And the other benefit to our participation is that it does satisfy one of the requirements, one of the options, I guess, in 25-1 and gives us a bump in school construction funding of 5%. So for something that we're already doing, we already have the development district set up. So I think for us, it's beneficial. So that is done. I will include a copy. I think what I'm going to do is put a copy of the MOA on our website and maybe a quick question and answer as to what the CMDA is and what it means and just what I covered here. So hopefully it'll answer some folks' questions.
It's not Hartford and not where else?
East Hartford and Hartford are the only two communities that are eligible. So 167 other communities are. They can only, but they can only work in within a half mile of a transit station or a rapid transit station, train station, rapid transit, or downtown. And so that's a fairly small geographic area of each community, and it's completely voluntary. It's optional. You don't have to join, but it does have some benefits. It does provide, technical and planning support and financial assistance to projects and infrastructure needs in support of projects, as well as the boost in your school construction funding. Greenfield Street, I will skip over the other stuff because I think we've really covered it, but Greenfield Street, we need to get back before the boards to have them review and hopefully approve a development agreement and ground lease for 254. We are working to start construction on Parkview Commons now that we've got our approvals from planning and zoning. They just need to pull a building permit at this point. The Housing Trust Fund has a balance of $1,455,990, of which we've reserved $577,800 for both High Street and Parkview, leaving an uncommitted balance of $885,990 as of the end of February. And the only other thing I would add is we started programming for Community Development Block Grant Program Year 52 with our first public hearing. Deadline is coming up March 16th, next week. And we also started soliciting applications for the Neighborhood Assistance Act program. Applications there are due that last week in April. And that, I think, is it. I did update the residential tracker, but I don't think it really, the only project would be, we talked about Royal Avenue, which is under construction, but that was already listed. But I've seen, we're getting close to pulling building permits for, I think, 105 Biro. They're starting demo over there. And 730, 750 Commerce, they're also getting ready to demo those buildings. So building permits should be issued probably soon after that.
But nothing's been done as yet.
Nothing's been done yet.
Is the latest online or?
I will post it. Yeah, I haven't moved them yet, but when they pull a building permit, I'll put them into the
Is that
construction.
across from the post office? Where is that? What are those buildings?
What's that?
What's 730 Commerce? Where's that?
730 is the 90-unit buildings by Scala Partners, who did Trademark and Alto. So
over there. Okay.
where Rio Bravo and
Good.
the concrete testing building, one-story building. So that whole area is.
Oh, it's going. Oh.
A lot going on, and we think Bronson is getting very close to getting its CO. And I think final inspections are happening shortly, and we have been advised that it's possible that the development may be sold to Connecticut Housing Partners. Convert the entire property to affordable.
Wow.
Which would
Interesting.
Does that get?
totally make our more.
Well, that would be huge. If I'm just looking up my thing, that's 91. 28 affordable gives us essentially 65 points. So roughly triple that, 180, 190, close to 200 points.
It'll be significant, yeah.
Yeah.
All good news.
Connecticut Housing Partners is an independent company.
Connecticut Housing Partners is the successor. We've had meetings with them in the past. We've been talking to them about opportunities here. But they're the successor to Mutual Housing Association of Southwestern Connecticut, who we work with to develop
And
Greenfield Commons.
they did the senior housing.
Correct.
To
Greenfield Commons.
Greenfield Street or Bill Avenue.
Is that what I have?
Where do they get the capital from to buy the?
I believe the state is providing the financing.
What was that, Tom?
Where do they get the financing from?
State again.
And Mark's estate.
Yeah, so they can get cheaper financing from the state than the developer can get from the private market, I'm assuming. Because private financing is 6%.
Oh, it's built. you know,
Well, no, but you got to pay for it.
well, you do have to convert it to permanent financing, take out your, yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
So, yeah. And, you know, I think that'd be great I don't know if it's, where they are in the process and when it was scheduled to close, but it would be terrific news.
Yeah, that would be amazing if they do. If it becomes entirely affordable, that takes us a very long way to meeting our goals.
They haven't,
You know.
they haven't started, showing places if they're close to a
No,
single.
they haven't.
I'm surprised,
No, they
yeah.
haven't. That's what prompted this. We reached out to them.
It's Brunton Road at the bottom. It's like, it's a
You
weird
really
location.
can't see it except
Yeah.
from the highway and from Lacey Place.
you have to go to Ruger Stern or whatever, the gun place. Go
Yeah.
there, across the highway.
Next time I'm over.
Yeah.
Well, you can,
So-
you can look at it from,
So what prompted it is we've reached out to them a couple times and asked about their plans for lease up. And the last time we reached out to them, they indicated a sale was pending. And then we talked to Connecticut Housing Partners and they confirmed that the sale was pending.
Connecticut Housing Partners, it's a quasi-agency, state agency?
It's a nonprofit,
Just a nonprofit, okay.
nonprofit housing developer. So, you know, that certainly is exciting. We're happy to hear that.
A rough calculation suggests that we'll be at 258 points if it becomes 100%.
You'll have to see how it gets broken down.
Yep, yep. Fair point.
Let's not get the community too excited yet. Do we have any other, Jackie, anything on Connect or any other dates that you wanted to brief us on?
Nothing new.
So just dates to keep in mind again, April 14th for our meeting with planning and zoning. April 29 or 30, Mark's working toward for the workshop. April 23rd, Bigelow Center, Aging in Place Fair. Any other key dates that anybody has?
Good.
Okay. April 8th, next meeting.
Yeah. April 8th.
What was the catchy title?
And we're going to RTM on Monday night.
Correct.
Unfortunately, the meeting, especially for Mark, the meeting starts at 8.
I think it is, I think it's 7:30. Why?
It's listed as 8.
Oh, is it?
I think caucus is at.
We should check that because I made that mistake last time. The call for the RTM meeting is 8 o'clock, but I think the informational meeting might be 7:30.
Okay.
So they
They
send you
get you
the
in and
call.
out first, right?
Well, there's a couple things before us. We're actually last. But there's only like 5 things on the agenda, so it's not a long.
But does that mean we're done at 8 when they start this other thing, or?
No, so they meet as committees in an informational meeting the Monday before the regular meeting. The regular meeting, which is the same group that meets when they take action, that's at 8 o'clock. I think the informational meeting, and I will confirm this with Betsy, I think that is at 7:30. I made the mistake last time telling the chair, it's at 8 o'clock because I read the call. I thought they moved everything. And I showed up early thinking I was early and they started the meeting. So he showed up at 8. We were kind of like in progress. So my bad. I'm trying not to do that same thing twice.
Okay, well, that's great. I'll look forward to hearing from you.
Can you circulate again the final report?
Sure.
I had done it a month ago, but we used to provide a map with that report.
Yeah.
I still like those maps.
My graphing capabilities are limited. We do have a cool chart that shows just constant progress to making affordable housing.
This chart you put up in your lifelong learners talk is very powerful. And if this this Bronson Street things go through, that would be an extraordinary charge.
Yep. It will be very nice.
Take the credit, Mark.
Okay, is there a motion for adjournment?
Sure.
Oh, right on that, right on time. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Good night, everyone. Thanks, Mark.
Night.
Tom.
Hey.